Hey, so today we're going to be talking about my JMC blog post, which is TikTok and mass media. So we had to watch a PBS documentary for it. Frankly, I'm not going to be touching really on it. I found it very boring. I fell asleep on accident, and then I did finish it. I finished it, but um, I found the readings that we had much more interesting. I'm much more of a numbers person, and so specifically the first one I found really interesting. But even the rest of them still used more numbers and such, which just kind of clicked better in my head. I think one of the big things I took away from one of the readings is that teens have been saying in 2022 at least, they were saying that they almost constantly use TikTok and YouTube. So 16 out of 100 and for TikTok and 19 out of 100 for YouTube. And I think that's kind of crazy. I'm going to assume constantly is whenever they have free time. So if they have a job, hopefully they're not, and if they don't, then whatever time they would be using on the job. So the average there is probably like 10 hours. That's kind of crazy. I am someone who I think would consider myself constantly using YouTube, and I would say that because I have it on in the background very frequently. I like watching like hour plus long stuff on stuff I'm interested in while I'm working or while I'm playing a video game or while I'm talking with friends. I don't know why, just having like chatter is really nice to me. The other thing I usually do is listen to music, but I like singing and I sing loud and I'm in the dorms, so I can't really do that. So I kind of default to YouTube now. But I'd assume these people who are saying they constantly use YouTube are saying they like literally just sit there and watch YouTube for hours and hours, and I just that's kind of crazy to me. That's kind of crazy. In the same study, they also talked a lot about Facebook, which was interesting to me because for me, it's so insanely obvious why Facebook died, why Facebook kind of dropped off the map of being super big in the teen culture. And it's because one, Instagram came around and it was a way better user interface on phones. It took advantage of the thing that's in your hand all the time, and it said, hey, we're going to make it really easy to use on phones. And so Facebook is super good to use on laptops, and Instagram is really hard to use on laptops. And so I think that's why Instagram took off instead of Facebook. But I also think it's interesting that they're constantly comparing things like Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Because I don't think they're very similar at all, other than there's videos you can watch from other people. TikTok, generally everything you'll find is under 3 minutes. And then if you look, you can find stuff that is up to 7 minutes. YouTube, generally most things you're going to find are around 10 minutes or more. And then they have their YouTube Shorts, which has been growing a ton lately, largely due to the AI process. But it's still a platform that primarily makes its money from long form content. And then Facebook, I had Facebook for a long time. There wasn't much. People weren't posting on it very frequently. The only people I know who used it were like my teachers who ran clubs, which is why I had it, and like my mom's friends and my mom. And so there was just no reason for me to use it. Another thing is that uh there's this kind of microcosm that I think was brought up in the idea of teens on TikTok comparing adults and gambling. And I think that is a drastic example, but kind of a real one. TikTok very frequently has this problem of reducing attention spans. You'll find on a lot of statistic websites where, like, if you look at statistics of videos on longer form platforms like YouTube, most of the people watching those longer form things are at least like 17 or 18. Anything below that, they're watching like 3 minute, 1 minute videos or the YouTube Shorts things. And it's even easier for people to just pump out slop these days with this crazy AI thing going on. Um, and so it's so interesting when it comes to that because TikTok and gambling aren't. It's a little different. I don't think TikTok has quite as much of a detrimental effect on your life in the short term, at least. Gambling, obviously, you could ruin your whole life in one night if you have a big enough problem. TikTok, the worst thing you can do is, well, I guess the worst thing you could do is go to the TikTok store and buy a bunch of stuff, but for the most part, I feel like the worst thing you do is stay up all night watching TikTok and you're really tired and miserable the next day. But I do think that kind of instant gratification of watching this quick little thing, getting a little serotonin boost, seeing something you like, is rather comparable to like spinning a slot machine. And I think the point they brought up where it gets you when you're, you know, at a vulnerable time, you're tired, it's dark out, people you know probably aren't up, all this different kind of stuff. And I think that relates into the Trump idea of banning TikTok well, because that's a lot of the stuff he cites. He cites a lot of stuff of we need to ban TikTok because it's ruining our young generation. And I don't think that's true. I don't think it is. I think it's changing the way media works, and I don't like the way it's changing it. I really don't want my future to be filled with 5 second clips of uh uh weird stuff that I don't care about. I'm sorry, I was trying to think of like a meme on TikTok, but I really just don't know one. And I do think a big problem is Trump says these things, but the reality is he's just using it because he wants to vie for power. He wants to control as much media as he can, and he also, to a certain extent, does have kind of the paranoia of like everyone's out to get him. So I do think when he says like the Chinese are spying on people, he's not necessarily saying it out of a place of worry for the general populace, and he's more saying it out of worry for people finding out stuff about him. And I mean, it is proven that TikTok generally has been used to spy on people, but I don't know if most people care. The reality is, most people, from what I know, like for instance, my little brother or my big sister, they're like, my information's already out there. Like, I know my information's out there. The worst thing they're gonna do is like find my social, but I don't have my social on TikTok, so it doesn't matter. And it's like, yeah, I mean, fair enough. Literally everything on the internet is trying to get your information perpetually, so it's kind of silly on that front. So, for the first time ever, I downloaded TikTok. Now, specifically, I used an email that I then deleted because I feel like I really don't want to get into the habit of using it, and having an account is just one step easier to using it. Oh gosh. I made that email and I still deleted it because I made it for this, but I don't feel any need to go back to TikTok. It was, well, one, I saw a lot of AI stuff. I have very pseudo radical opinions on AI, but specifically a lot of like AI generated art video kind of things that were just like bafflingly confusing with millions of views. And I cannot wrap my head around why people are watching this stuff. I also got some stuff that was not up my alley, but like at least it made a little more sense. There was some like conversational debate podcast thing, and then there was another like uh oh, what's it called? I don't know what it's called, but it was this dance thing, which I honestly really didn't think there was still dancing stuff going on TikTok. I thought that died out. But yeah, eventually it really narrowed down very quickly on the kinds of things I was interested in. I started getting a little bit of gaming content, and I started interacting with that a little bit more. Like, I like the video. I tried my best to interact with it as if I was interacting with a platform I would just want to be on. So I liked it, and then eventually it narrowed it down to like lore stuff, and then it narrowed it down to like weird dinosaur facts, which I think they got because I liked a Jurassic World game video. And I mean, I like dinosaurs. I wouldn't say it's like top five interest, but I like dinosaurs. They're cool. And so it was kind of scary how fast it narrowed in and like grabbed onto like, hey, you like this thing? Come back and we'll show you more of this thing. The other thing that, well, so many ads. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as I honestly thought it would be, but even in some of the like the short videos I was watching, like there would be like tiny little ads where it's just like they just like perpetually try and use the same thing. I didn't end up following any accounts. There was nothing that truly grabbed my attention, but it kind of put into perspective for me how easily it can be to fall into that hole of using TikTok. I mean, not that using TikTok as a whole. I think the idea that TikTok is killing the masses and everyone's going brain dead because of it is silly. I think the reality is the people using TikTok are using TikTok like that because where they are in life is not positive. The life they have been given is not something they're super interested in interacting with, because it's much better to interact with things you like online than interact with, the city suburbs you're living in, where you can walk outside for 10 minutes and it's squelching hot, or you walk outside for 10 minutes and someone is having a fight in the street. This is coming from someone who grew up in pretty shady suburbs. Uh, and so I don't know. I think TikTok is less of a problem that TikTok needs to be banned and more of a problem of why are people spending so much time on TikTok versus the world out there, you know? Like, why do these people feel the need to be on TikTok instead of being outside, instead of texting friends? What's the difference there? And I think it all boils down to the world that has been created for new people to come into is not one that is very fun to live in. And I think TikTok creates a nice escape where even the things that show up on your feed that are bad, you watch for 3 seconds and you're done. You just swipe on past it and you're all good. So yeah, I think TikTok can be radicalized in ways that make TikTok look bad, and I think there are ways to kind of address the fact that I don't think it's much of TikTok's fault as much more as it is the world around us. But I don't know. I don't use TikTok very much. So we'll see. Yeah.